In the midst of an unusual silence, a small news triggered a huge wave of speculation among ARMY Global. Jungkook and Taehyung, two names who have been in the spotlight for some time due to their enigmatic moves, are now reportedly putting together a new itinerary for their return to South Korea. This news may sound simple on the surface, but for fans who have been following every detail of their trip, this schedule change feels like a missing piece of the puzzle, while raising more questions than answers. Since their departure to Japan, Jungkook and Taehyung have barely given any statements in person. There were no explanatory posts, no clarifications, not even the usual verbal cues they gave the ARMY. There are only fragments of the moment. A brief look at the airport, a step that seems hasty but calm, as well as facial expressions that are far from the usual holiday impression. In a world of K-pop that is usually full of scheduled openness, this reticence is striking. Now, with the news that they're readjusting their return to Korea's schedule, many fans are starting to realize one important thing. This change is almost certainly not a sudden decision for no reason. In an industry as big as HYB's, the schedules of top artists like Jungkook and Taehyung are designed well into the future through tight coordination between management, security, and professional agendas. That is, if there are changes, then there are significant variables that come into play behind the scenes. Some ARMY officials suspect that the schedule adjustments are related to sensitive internal agendas, whether it's important discussions with management, preparation of unannounced projects, or even personal decisions that require specific time and space. Other allegations suggest that the two deliberately avoided excessive public scrutiny at the moment of return, given the high media attention and the potential for wild interpretations that could arise from a single photo or a second of video footage at the airport. Interestingly, Jungkook and Taehyung are not just group mates. Over the years, the two have been known to have strong emotional dynamics, sometimes warm, sometimes distanced, but always honest in body language. In the last few occasions before their departure, fans noted subtle changes in their interactions, more calm, more restrained, and as if carrying a burden that is not expressed through words. This change in the return schedule, for many ARMY, feels like a continuation of the pattern. On the other hand, the decision to rearrange the return schedule can also be read as a form of control over the narrative. Jungkook and Taehyung, consciously or unconsciously, have learned that their every move will be interpreted, dissected, and disseminated in a matter of minutes. By choosing a different time and way home than the public expected, they seem to take back a bit of control over their personal space, something very rare for idols at their level. The Korean media is still cautious. Until now, there has been no official statement detailing the reasons for the schedule change. But it is precisely this information vacuum that keeps this story alive. On social media, the timeline is filled with theories, analysis, to old video pieces that are relifted to look for hidden clues. Some see this as a signal ahead of a major announcement, while others see it as a protective measure after a long period of pressure. For ARMY, the one thing that was felt the most was an emotion mixed between anxiety and understanding. Many fans voiced hope that Jungkook and Taehyung will be given some breathing room, whatever the reason behind the schedule change. But at the same time, it cannot be denied that curiosity continues to grow. Why now? Why should it be changed? And why does it all feel so lonely? This change in the return schedule may soon pass without a long explanation. It could be that when Jungkook and Taehyung finally set foot back in Korea, everything will look normal in the public eye. But for those who followed the story from the very beginning, this moment will still be noted as one of the most ambiguous phases, the one in which two huge stars choose silence, change plans, and leave the world guessing about their meaning. And maybe that's where the biggest message is. Not everything needs to be announced. Not all decisions have to be explained. Sometimes, small changes like rearranged return schedules are just a sign that there is a big process going on, a process that only they fully understand. ARMY can only wait, observe, and hope that whatever they prepare for, both professionally and personally, will bring Jungkook and Taehyung to a stronger version of themselves when they return to Korea. Jungkook and Taehyung's decision to rearrange their return to Korea also led to a deeper discussion about the mental and emotional state of the idols behind the stage. For years, BTS was known as a group that was very open about the struggles, fatigue, and pressure they faced. But in this phase, it is precisely the silence that speaks loudest. No explanation, no clarification, just a small change that feels big. Some observers of the Korean entertainment industry consider that scheduled changes like this are often related to internal processes that cannot be revealed to the public. It can be contract adjustments, strategic talks about the future of group and individual activities, or even personal evaluations after a long period of pressure. Jungkook and Taehyung, who have always been in the limelight due to their popularity and global influence, are certainly in a much more vulnerable position to public expectations. Interestingly, ARMY began to notice that during this period, Jungkook and Taehyung both showed a tendency to pull away from the excessive spotlight. Jungkook, who usually actively interacts with fans, looks more selective and calm. Taehyung also displays a more reflective side not through words, but through expressions, gesture choices, and his attitude in public spaces. All this makes the change in the return schedule feel like a natural continuation of the process. That on social media, fan responses were divided. Some feel anxiety, fear that these changes signal something serious or heavy. But not a few see it as an adult step, a conscious decision to prioritize health, privacy, and control over their own lives. In a world that demands everything be fast-paced and transparent, choosing silence and changing plans can be the quietest form of resistance. Returning to Korea itself is not just a matter of returning home. For Jungkook and Taehyung, Korea is the center of all their responsibilities, a place where big decisions are made, a place where the future of their careers is designed, and a place where every step will again be under the strictest spotlight. Postponing or rearranging the moment can mean that they are preparing both mentally and strategically for what they will face afterwards. There's also speculation that this schedule change was made to avoid overcrowding and emotional situations at the airport. In recent years, BTS's homecoming moments have often turned into a sea of cameras and huge crowds, which is not always safe or comfortable. With the altered schedule, they might have hoped to arrive more calmly, without the added stress, without the exaggerated narrative instantly shaped by a second of videotape. But behind all that analysis, one thing that cannot be ignored is Jungkook and Taehyung's relationship with the ARMY. Their silence does not mean emotional distance. Instead, many fans felt that this silence was a form of trust, a belief that ARMY would understand, would wait, and not force an untimely answer. And so far, those responses are clearly visible in the many messages of support flooding the timeline. This change in the home schedule, sooner or later, will lose its highlight. There will be new news, new topics, and other issues that take over the public's attention. But for those who follow every detail of Jungkook and Taehyung's journey, this moment will still be remembered as one of the points where the two great artists chose to reset their pace, even though the world was staring. Perhaps when they finally return to Korea, there will be no official statement, no press conference, and no lengthy explanation. They might just step out of the airport, look down briefly, then disappear behind the car door. But behind that simplicity, the ARMY knows that every decision they make carries a long story that can't always be told. And in the end, this change in schedule reminds one important thing. Jungkook and Taehyung are not only global icons, not just symbols of the industry, but also human beings who have the right to set their own time, space, and pace. If they now choose to go back to Korea in a different way, then maybe that's how they will take care of themselves, before returning to stand before the world with renewed strength.